March 22nd is not an ordinary date. And you must not mistake this Sun conjunct Neptune in Aries for a soft spiritual mood or a passing wave of inspiration. This is a threshold, a real one, a living one. A moment when the fog between what you dreamed, what you feared, and what you are finally meant to build begins to thin just enough for destiny to show its outline. And because this threshold opens in Aries, it does not whisper for long. It pushes. It ignites. It demands movement. What unlocks now is not just emotion. It is not just clarity. It is a once-in-a-lifetime wealth portal, and you must understand that wealth here does not begin only with money. It begins with alignment, with self-respect, with the courage to stop handing your energy to what cannot hold your future. This is why the atmosphere may feel so strange right now. Since yesterday, Venus and Saturn have already begun doing their heavy work. They have been pressing on the architecture of love, commitment, loyalty, and emotional maturity. They have been revealing who is real, who is avoidant, who is emotionally available, who only speaks in temporary comfort, and who can actually stand beside you when life becomes serious. That means March 22nd does not arrive into a clean emotional field. It arrives into a field that has already been shaken. It arrives after the heart has been tested, after illusions have been strained, after silence has started saying more than words ever could, and now into that sobering emotional landscape. The Sun meets Neptune in Aries and illuminates the threshold you are standing before. You must understand what that means. Neptune is not a small energy. It dissolves boundaries, heightens intuition, exposes the invisible, and magnifies the spiritual undertow beneath ordinary life. The Sun reveals. Aries initiates. So when these forces meet, something hidden inside you becomes impossible to ignore. A vision, a longing, a truth, a calling, a hunger for a life that feels cleaner, bolder, freer, and more fully yours. But because Neptune is involved, this threshold is not just about opening. It is also about discernment. Because not every dream is destiny. Not every opportunity is a blessing. Not every person who appears at the doorway is meant to cross it with you. This is where many people misunderstand what a wealth portal truly is. They imagine only sudden money, unexpected luck, external opportunity, financial breakthrough that appears without interchange. But this threshold does not work like that. It responds to energetic honesty. It asks what you have been tolerating that drains your power. It asks where you have been waiting for permission. It asks where you have been romanticizing what is inconsistent, overgiving to what is uncommitted, or shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. Because wealth does not build cleanly on self-betrayal. Abundance cannot stabilize where confusion is still being worshipped as hope. And the threshold opening now is not interested in fantasies that keep you poor in spirit, poor in standards, poor in clarity, or eventually poor in money. You may have felt this building for days already. A deep emotional tiredness that did not quite make sense. A pressure in the chest. Strange dreams. A quiet disillusionment with conversations that used to excite you. A sudden inability to perform emotional labor for people who give you crumbs. A restlessness that feels spiritual, not random. Maybe you have felt more detached from what once seemed urgent. Maybe someone's behavior has become painfully clear without them even saying much. Maybe you have looked at your life and felt both grief and readiness at the same time. That is what standing at a threshold often feels like. One part of you is mourning what cannot continue. Another part of you can already feel the next chapter gathering on the other side, and this is important. Because the heaviness you may have been feeling is not proof that something is going wrong. It may be proof that the threshold is real. Venus and Saturn have been acting like guardians at the entrance. They have not come to punish your heart. They have come to sober it, to cleanse it of wishful thinking, to reveal whether your current emotional ties are building your future or quietly weakening your foundation. Some people are noticing distance right now. Some are noticing silence. Some are receiving clarity they did not ask for. Some are seeing that a connection they kept calling destiny was actually a lesson in inconsistency, projection, or delayed self-worth. Harsh as that may feel, This is mercy. Because a true wealth portal cannot open fully while your energy is still entangled with what was never meant to sustain you. So what is shifting now? The shift is this. The threshold is no longer hidden. Before, you may have sensed change coming, but could not name it. Before, the future may have felt like a fog. Before, you may have known what hurt, but not yet known what to do about it. Now the light changes. The sun on Neptune in Aries does not necessarily hand you a full map, but it does illuminate the entrance. It shows you where life is asking for a brave yes, and where it is requiring a sacred no. It awakens the part of you that knows wealth is not only what arrives, but what you finally stop leaking. Time, attention, desire, money, faith, life force. This is the kind of threshold that begins paying you back the moment. You stop giving yourself away to what cannot honor you. You may feel that shift mentally first. Thoughts becoming sharper after a period of emotional haze. A sudden intolerance for confusion. A powerful inner voice rising where there used to be second-guessing. You may find yourself replaying certain conversations, but hearing them differently now. You may realize that what once sounded ambiguous was actually revealing. What once felt romantic was actually unstable. What once felt delayed was actually unavailable. This can be unsettling because Neptune does not always remove illusion gently. Sometimes it lets the dream become so thin that you can finally see the wall behind it. But once you see clearly, you cannot go back to unseeing. And that is part of what makes this threshold sacred. Clarity is expensive. It costs old identities. It costs comforting lies. But it opens the way for cleaner power. Emotionally, this transit can feel like a strange combination of grief and ignition. You may feel sadness for what is ending, but also a fierce new intimacy with your own future. You may cry more easily, yet feel less willing to chase. You may feel tenderness without weakness, compassion without self-abandonment, hope without delusion. This is maturity being born inside the soul, not coldness, not cynicism. Maturity. The kind that understands love and abundance both require structure. The kind that knows softness must be paired with standards. The kind that no longer confuses longing with compatibility or attention with devotion. Spiritually, you may feel as though the universe is speaking in symbols right now. Through dreams, repeated phrases, timing shifts, sudden endings, uncanny meetings, or an internal knowing that arrives whole and silent. Neptune increases symbolic sensitivity. Aries turns that sensitivity toward action. So this is not a passive mystical moment. It is revelation with momentum. Intuition with a pulse. Guidance that wants embodiment. You may feel called to begin something before you feel fully ready. You may sense that a new stream of wealth, creativity, purpose, or leadership is nearby. But that it requires a cleaner inner environment than the one you have been living in. That is because the threshold does not only open outward, it opens inward. It asks whether you are emotionally available for the life you keep asking for. Physically, this can show up in the body in precise ways. Heaviness in the chest, tightness in the throat, waves of fatigue after emotionally charged interactions, sleep that is vivid, interrupted, or full of symbolic dreams, a nervous system that feels overstimulated by inconsistency and deeply soothed by honesty. You may notice that your body reacts faster than your mind right now. It knows when something is off. It knows when a conversation is draining. It knows when a place, plan, or person carries static. Do not ignore that. The threshold speaks through the body before the ego is willing to admit the truth. What you call exhaustion may in part be your spirit refusing to keep performing normalcy in spaces that no longer fit. Now we need to talk about money, because this title is not an accident and neither is this timing. A wealth portal under SUN Conjunct NEPTUNE in Aries is not about reckless optimism. It is about inspired initiative after emotional purification. In other words, abundance may open now, but only where illusion has already been challenged. This is why the Venus-Saturn backdrop matters so much. It is showing you whether your financial choices are rooted in self-trust or emotional compensation. Are you overspending to soothe yourself? Undercharging because you fear rejection? Delaying a bold move because you still seek approval? Staying attached to an unstable source of income because uncertainty feels familiar? The threshold asks you to look at these patterns with brutal tenderness. You may receive a new idea now, one that feels almost too clean, too obvious, too aligned to have been visible before. A business direction, a brand shift, a creative offering, a leadership decision, a change in how you price your work, protect your time, or structure your resources. Aries wants movement, but Neptune insists that movement come from inner truth, not desperation. So if you feel called to begin, simplify, or boldly reposition something in your financial life, pay attention. This may be the beginning of a long-term abundance path, but it will require sobriety. Do not confuse inspiration with fantasy. Do not call a financial escape plan a wealth portal if it depends on denial. The real portal will feel expansive, yes, but also strangely grounding. It will ask for courage and discipline at the same time. This is also a powerful transit for self-worth, which is why money may become emotional in a revealing way. You may suddenly understand that certain financial struggles were not only about external conditions, they were also tied to what you believed you were allowed to receive, to whether you trusted yourself with more visibility, more responsibility, more power, to whether part of you still associated wealth with guilt, pressure, exposure, or abandonment. The threshold opening now can begin dissolving those patterns, but only if you are willing to see them clearly. Wealth is not just what enters your bank account. It is what your nervous system can safely hold without panic, self-sabotage, or the urge to make yourself smaller again. For those in work or business, this is a strong time to observe where your energy is being diluted. Weak collaborations, delayed payments, vague agreements, overpromising clients, emotional entanglement in professional decisions. Neptune can blur, and Aries can rush. So let the threshold teach you the sacred art of clean initiation. Begin what is aligned, but define it properly. Protect your time. Clarify your terms. Price with integrity. Watch where you feel energized versus where you feel mysteriously depleted. Abundance leaves clues in the body long before it leaves numbers on a screen. Your health and body are part of this wealth portal too, because no real abundance enters through chronic self-neglect. Under this energy, the body becomes both messenger and gatekeeper. Hydration matters more. Sleep matters more. Silence matters more. Your system may need more recovery than usual, especially if the emotional truths of Venus and Saturn have been hitting hard. The threshold is asking you to regulate, not just react. To rest before burnout makes the decision for you. To notice what your body does after certain calls, texts, environments, and thoughts. There is spiritual information there. There is also practical wisdom. This is not a time to override every signal with productivity. If you feel foggy, ground. If you feel anxious, slow the pace and reduce noise. If you feel emotionally flooded, do not immediately seek distraction. Let the feeling reveal its message. The body under Neptune can be porous, highly intuitive, and sensitive to overstimulation. Under Aries, it may also swing between bursts of energy and sudden depletion. Be mindful of inflammation, impulsive pacing, disrupted sleep, dehydration, and the kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly scanning for emotional certainty where none exists. The threshold opens more cleanly when your nervous system believes you are safe enough to receive change. And now we come to relationships, because this is where the message becomes sharp. Since yesterday, Venus and Saturn have begun revealing serious truths, and many of you already know exactly what I mean. Something in the field of connection has changed. Maybe not dramatically on the surface, but undeniably underneath. A tone is different. A pattern is visible. A silence is speaking. A distance has become honest. The threshold in relationships is not asking you to become colder. It is asking you to become more exact, more emotionally mature, more loyal to what is actually happening than to what you hoped would happen. Watch behavior now with sacred seriousness. Who becomes more present when things get real? Who becomes vague? Who can hold a difficult conversation without punishing you? Who disappears when accountability enters the room? Who offers you emotional intensity but no consistency? Who wants access without responsibility? Who seems inspired by your light but unsettled by your standards? These are not small details. These are threshold questions, because the future opening for you cannot be built with people who only love your softness but resist your boundaries. If you are in a relationship, this energy may reveal where the structure is strong and where it has been quietly weak. Some couples may deepen now through honesty, renewed commitment, and a shared willingness to grow up emotionally. Others may face the painful recognition that love alone is not enough without steadiness, trust, and mutual effort. This is not meant to create fear. It is meant to restore truth. A real connection can survive the threshold. In fact, it becomes stronger because of it. But anything built mainly on projection, convenience, avoidance, or fantasy may begin to crack. Do not rush to patch what the universe is trying to show you in its real shape. If you are single, this threshold may be even more important than a new romance. Because what is being purified now is your chooser, your discernment, your ability to feel attraction without surrendering judgment, your capacity to notice red flags without bargaining them away because loneliness got loud, your willingness to leave the doorway empty rather than invite in another lesson disguised as chemistry. The wealth portal in love opens when you stop treating peace as boring and inconsistency as passion. It opens when your standards stop apologizing. It opens when your self-respect becomes stronger than your hope for a potential communication may feel strange now too. Some conversations will suddenly become profoundly honest. Others may feel thin, evasive, or emotionally underdeveloped. Listen carefully. Not only to what people say, but to what they avoid, repeat, delay, or minimize. Under this energy, mixed signals are not to be decoded endlessly. They are to be understood as information. If something is unclear, step back and watch what clarity arrives without your chasing. The threshold teaches by contrast. Truth becomes louder when you stop drowning it in explanation. So what should you do during this transit? First, slow your emotional reactions just enough to observe the deeper pattern. Not every feeling needs immediate expression, but every repeated pattern deserves respect. Second, do not chase clarity from people who become more confusing when asked to be honest. Third, protect your money, your time, and your energy from emotionally impulsive decisions. Fourth, if one truthful conversation needs to happen, let it happen cleanly, calmly, and without performance. Fifth, journal what has become undeniable. Not what you wish, not what you fear, what you know. The threshold becomes easier to cross when you stop pretending not to recognize it. Also, return to your body. Drink water. Sleep earlier. Reduce overstimulation. Walk without your phone. Let your nervous system settle enough to hear your real intuition. This transit can bring enormous spiritual insight, but only if your inner environment is not drowning in noise. Protect the morning. Protect your attention. Protect your standards. And above all, do not abandon your future to keep a current comfort alive. That is one of the central temptations at this threshold. Now let us speak directly to the three signs most affected by this moment: Aries, Libra, and Pisces. Aries, this threshold is intensely personal for you. The Sun and Neptune are meeting in your territory, and that means the doorway opening now is not abstract. It is about identity, about the version of you that can no longer survive by reacting, proving, or forcing. You are being asked to become spiritually accurate, not just brave. To move from impulse into embodied vision. Some of you are realizing that the life you have been trying to build cannot come from the old self-image anymore. The old armor is too heavy. The old methods are too costly. The old desires are no longer clean. And yet, this is not a loss. This is initiation. Wealth can begin opening for you now in startling ways, but only if you stop wasting fire on what was never meant to last. In love, watch where you have been overfunctioning or romanticizing pursuit. In money, trust the new idea that feels both inspired and disciplined. In your spirit, honor this strange new sensitivity rising inside you. This is not weakness. It is your next power source. Libra, this threshold is confronting your relationship axis in a way that may feel almost surgical. You are being shown who truly aligns with your future and who only fit the version of you that kept over-compromising to maintain peace. Venus and Saturn are not playing games here. They're asking whether your bonds have structure, reciprocity, and emotional adulthood. The SUN Neptune doorway now reveals what your heart already sensed but may have delayed naming. Someone's silence may be clarifying everything. Someone's steadiness may suddenly feel more attractive than intensity ever did. This is your lesson now. Stop calling uncertainty a connection. Stop treating your own needs as negotiable. Wealth for you is directly tied to relational integrity in this season. When your partnerships become cleaner, your energy returns. When your energy returns, so does your creativity, your magnetism, and your ability to receive. Stand at the threshold without panic. Let truth sort itself. The right bond will not require you to shrink to keep it. Pisces, this moment may feel almost supernatural for you because Neptune's influence is something you know in your bones. But now the energy is changing form. What once lived as longing, intuition, symbolism, an emotional tide is asking to become action, choice, and self-protection. The threshold opening for you is deeply tied to value, your gifts, your money, your energy. Your willingness to stop leaking yourself into people and situations that admire your softness but do not safeguard your spirit. This can be a profound abundance turning point, but only if you stop spiritualizing what is clearly unstable. That may sound harsh, but it is liberation. You are not being punished. You are being anchored. The dream is not dying. It is being given bones. In love, notice who meets your depth with maturity instead of fascination alone. In work, do not underprice what carries real soul. In your inner life, trust the signal that says enough. The threshold for you is where compassion finally joins hands with self-respect. What makes this moment so rare is not only the astrology itself, it is the sequence. First, the heart is sobered. Then the vision is illuminated. First, the illusions begin to crack. Then the threshold appears. First, the emotional field is purified. Then the wealth portal opens. That order matters, because it means what is arriving now has a chance to last. Not because everything becomes easy overnight, but because what begins from truth has roots. And roots are what turn moments into destinies. So if life feels serious right now, do not assume you are off path. If a relationship feels quieter, stranger, or more revealing than usual, do not rush to force certainty. If your body feels like it is speaking in exhaustion, sensitivity, or sudden discernment, listen. If a new idea for your future feels near, but asks for cleaner boundaries than you have kept before, honor that. This threshold is not punishing you. It is choosing you for a more aligned chapter. But you must choose it back. March 22nd unlocks a portal, yes. But the true key is not wishful thinking. It is honesty. Emotional honesty, financial honesty, spiritual honesty, relational honesty. The universe is not asking you to become harder. It is asking you to become clearer, to stop kneeling at the doorway of what cannot carry you, to rise, to gather your energy, to bless what must end, to protect what is sacred, to walk forward with your spirit intact, because what waits on the other side of this threshold is not just money, not just love, not just a new phase. It is a version of your life built on cleaner truth, and that is the kind of wealth no illusion can imitate, so do not ignore what is being shown now. Do not chase what retreats from responsibility. Do not hand your future to what only wants your softness without your standards. Stand at the threshold. Breathe. Let the old fog lift. Let the doorway become visible, and when it does, cross with courage. Cross with discernment. Cross knowing that the universe is not merely opening a path in front of you. It is revealing the one that was always meant to be yours.